Today has dawned a lovely morning. I'm going to keep it short and sweet today. I've got to get to Fenny Compton, which is about 14 locks distance away and 3 pages in the book. So I've got to be cracking on to get to the marina before they shut at 4 o'clock. I would like to put some diesel in and buy a few bits and pieces. These elastics here that hold the canopy together are getting very stretched and worn, so I know they sell them because I bought some there last year. This is Twyford Wharf, where quite a few hire boats come from. It's quite narrow. Just come on Bridge 177, and there's a lot of moored boats up here, so you've got to take your time going through, nice and slow. Lovely little damselflies just landed on the boat. See if we can persuade it to fly away. Yes, there it goes. This is Grant's lock. It's quite a deep one, and it had a hell of a pull forwards in the lock going up. Dragged the boat right up to the gate, and I couldn't hold it back even with a rope round a bollard, so beware of that. That was with just the one paddle on that side open. Right, we've come through Grant's Lock, and now there's nothing to stop me until Banbury. We're just about to go back under the M40. This is something we do 3 times on this trip. We go through, we've been through once, we're about to go through again under the M40, and then the other side of Banbury, we go straight through the middle of Banbury, and the M40 goes to the right, to the east. So 3 times under the M40 on this trip. Right, that's the M40 again. More lift bridges. They're all left open apparently, mostly. Although the guide does say some of them have had a British Waterways key installed on them and lock. So British Waterways, they call it, what do they call it, a Watermate key now. So be careful, some of them might be closed. I don't know how accurate that is, because every time I've come up here they've all been open, but you know, just beware. Well, as you come through Bridge 170, the field on the left is being turned into a new suburb of Banbury by the look of it. There's a huge building project going on. This was going on last year when I came up, and it looks like they've finished phase 1 of the houses on the far side, on the left of the field, and they're now working on phase 2, which is where all the scaffolding is. So yeah, more houses, more people. Any more services? I wonder. Will there be another doctor's surgery, school, shops, play areas in here? I doubt it. In fact, I don't think they were even working in this field when I came up last year. I think they were working over there, where all the new houses are. Hundreds of houses being built here. A whole new suburb in Banbury. So we're starting to come into Banbury proper now. We've come through an industrial estate, and I've come past here on a weekday, and this place is still working. So working site, and very noisy during the week. Lots of activity going on here. On the other side there's a lot of industrial warehousing units. So the canal is still a hive of industrial activity. You won't find boats coming and loading anymore. I mean, the old, that looks like it's coming to pieces down there. The old warehousing where you would have had boats tying up and offloading their cargoes and so on, it's all gone obviously. But industry still is quite important alongside the canal. A little bit further on into Banbury, and these are 14-day no-charge moorings on the right. Still old industrial converted into housing on the left, look. It's quite nice actually, and still got some old wharves and warehouses as we come into the town proper. See the old door there, and the rings, mooring rings in the wall where boats would have tied up to unload here. All this industrial stuff fascinates me. Sadly, it doesn't look like anyone's... Oh, there is some food going in there actually. Yes, yes, yes. Runner beans, artichokes in flour. Very nice. A few tomatoes. See some other stuff in there. This is the centre of Banbury and Banbury Lock, and on the right is the lock lay-by, which is very, very shallow. I ran aground there last year. And on the left is the sanitary station, which I'm going to make use of in a minute. There are the bollards on the left for the sanitary station, just coming into view. And I'm going to tie up and empty my toilet tank and all of that. Boaters Facilities Banbury. What could be better? Rubbish, toilet, the whole lot. So this is the first lock with double gates at the bottom of the lock that we've come to on this canal, which just means it's slower to operate really, unless you fancy jumping across the half, which I don't, not at my age. And the lift bridge, when you get up there, there's a lift bridge. You need to moor on the left hand side to operate the lift bridge, otherwise you end up on the wrong side of the canal to operate the bridge, which isn't very clever. You can see the iron piece here, where many butty ropes have pulled through and cut into the iron that was put there to protect the brickwork. You can see there inscribed in the stone 1940 for when the lock was rebuilt. Yeah, just pointing out the layout here, which is bonkers if you're single-handed. You have to be on this side of the lock to open and close the gate, but you have to then cross over and go onto that side of the canal, over there on the left, to do the lift bridge. So you've got to tie off and on again twice. Doesn't really make much sense, but that's the way it's laid out, so what can you do? That's Newbury Lock, we've just been through. It's right near the bus station, and it's also pretty close to the train station as well. And this Castle Quay shopping centre, which has just about everything in it. So the bridge here, 164 in Banbury, is operated with your windlass. You don't need a key or anything, it's hydraulically operated, and it's quite slow if I remember correctly. Let's have a look, see. Oh, it's not too bad. And this is the famous Tooley's Boatyard, which I believe has the oldest dry dock in the country. And I've never had a chance here. 1788 it was established. And I've never had a chance to go in, which is really sad because I've always wanted to go and visit this, but for whatever reason they're not open on the day that I come by. I remember the issue with this bridge. If you tie off on the right, you've got to walk all the way back down to the lock to get over to drop the bridge again, because the paddle gear's on this side. If you're a small boat, I guess you can tie off there, which is what I'm going to do on that bollard, but a longer boat wouldn't be able to do it. So there's Tooley's dry dock. I'd love to get in there one day and have a look. I really would. They repair a lot of vintage narrowboats here. They're regarded as one of the best that there is as far as narrowboat restorations, vintage narrowboat restorations goes. And as you come to Tooley's, you'll often see boats like this. This is a wooden narrowboat. So there's very few people left in the country that have got the facilities to restore these older working boats, and Tooley's is one of them. So you can moor up all along here, and I don't know why these are yellow. Have they suddenly become a hazard or something? Yeah, you can moor up on. This was a car park last time I came here. God knows what they're going to put in here now. More shops probably. Okay, suspended moorings. July to October for 50 metres outside the Castle Quay shopping centre. Well, that's going to cause chaos, isn't it? Tom Rolt Bridge. Tom Rolt was famous for setting off on a massive cruise here in the 1940s with his narrowboat Cressy, and a petrol engined converted leisure boat, one of the first leisure boats, and his cruise led to the foundation of the Inland Waterways Association, which was very responsible in the early days for the saving and restoration of the canals. Little Chandler's here at Sovereign Wharf. Looks like they sell diesel, gas and a few bits and pieces, so if you need anything they can help you. I'm aiming for Fenny Marina, where I know I can get diesel on a Sunday, and so yeah, I've got 2 more pages in the guide to go. There's Banbury, that's Cropredy. There is a marina at Cropredy, but I want to get on to Fenny Marina, which is up here. So just coming past all the moorings north of Newbury, heading north, and there's a little arm to the left with some boats down it, but you want to be going right here. That leads down to the old Grimsby Wharf. And now we're going underneath the A422 road. Look at this, we've got some crazy paddlers coming down the canal. 3 abreast flat out. Have they even noticed me? Takes all sorts. That's what floats your boat. Once you're outside of Banbury, it quickly returns to the rural, classic countryside canal, but occasionally you'll see these huge warehouses alongside the banks. You can see them through the trees. And I've got 3 mad canoeists coming up behind me again. I mean, just look at the size of those. They go on for miles, those do. Vast warehouses. This is the final time we pass under the M40, 3rd time and final time, and I'll be pleased to see the back of it. It's quite noisy, as you can hear, and you can hear it from quite a way off. This metal marker here with dis on it, distance, shows that you're quite close to a lock, which will be just around this corner here probably. And I heard someone tell the tale that you cracked your whip when you had a horse-drawn boat, that if the lock was in your favour, you cracked your whip when you got to one of those, and if someone heard your whip crack, they mustn't turn the lock around, because it would take longer for them to turn the lock around and get them through it than it would take for you to get to the lock. And it was about keeping traffic on the canal moving as quickly as possible. So those will be quite old, I should imagine, probably from the time of competing with the railways in the 1830s, 1840s. They're cast iron, obviously, so that's the period of a lot of iron bridges cast in the 1810s, 20s, 30s. This is Little Bourton Lock, and the lock cottage here has been derelict for a long time, uninhabited at least. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because there's no road in. I don't know if there is or not, but if there's no road into the lock cottage, it won't be very attractive for a modern dweller who would probably want to have a car there. So that could be why. I'll show you the lock cottage in a minute properly. Cat's eyes there. Yeah, it's a shame in a way. This could really be quite a nice place to live if it were done up. Sure, you're next to the canal with all the boats coming through all the time, but why not? I've just crept round the back of the cottage, and as you can see, it has no road access. That'll be why it's not being lived in. All the other ones that I've seen are quite nicely kept, and obviously there are people very happy to be living in them. But here, the lock cottage is derelict because the only way up and down would have been along the towpath or in a boat. There is no way of getting a car in here unless the farmer would let you come across the fields, and probably there's no right of way. Here the cows are getting very close to the traffic on the canal. Maybe they're hot and hoping to get a splashdown. Now, if I remember correctly, we're coming up to some very, very old boats. This is one of them. This is a genuine old working boat, converted for leisure, but you can tell from the sections of plating on the hull and the rivets, it's a proper old working boat. And so is this one here. You can tell from the helm, the ellum and the big rudder that that was a butty, not a motorboat. A butty would have been towed behind a motorboat. They'd have worked in pairs to be able to carry more cargo. You'd have had a motor pulling a butty boat. Here's a lovely old wooden boat. I don't think many wooden boats were built after the 1930s. Here's a little sluice that would have been able to open and release water from the canal for some reason, I'm not too sure why. And another typical Oxford Canal bridge and scene. As we come into the outskirts of Cropredy. As you come into Cropredy, you'll see there's moored boats all the way along the banks on both sides quite often, and it's a very slow passage into Cropredy to get to the lock. I am tied up alongside a narrowboat Trojan, and this boat belongs to my French teacher from Northbridge House School, where I went in the late 70s and early 80s. So we're talking 37 years ago. What a coincidence that he's on board at the same time as I'm coming past. So here's this final working pair breasted up now. I hope to be getting off in front of them. Definitely going to be getting off in front of them because they're tied up. Narrowboat Trust. That's a fine sight.
Oh, yeah, you pass me out the loading platform.
Well, if you fancy buying a working boat, this one's for sale. Look at that. Beautiful old timber boat, being kept in the water to stop it from going off. And here's another one. There's a lot of old working boats up here. What a fantastic thing. When you see really old boats like this, you need to take extra care going past them, because they can have very thin bottoms. I mean, that'll have a wooden bottom, but the steel boats can have very thin bottoms. And if they're bumped onto the bottom of the canal, it can rub through the hull and they can sink. So you have to be extra careful when you go past old boats. There's an old butty that's been converted. And some of these are fantastic inside. They're beautifully done up and wonderful to live in. This is the middle of 3 locks, Broadmoor, Varneys and Elkingtons, and then after that you get into the Claydon flight, which is up to the summit. So someone warned me about how low the canal was up here, and you can see it. The bank's really quite high. Yeah, it's very, very difficult along here. It's really shallow. The water levels are down so low. I'm doing about 2 miles an hour and I'm still producing a wash at the back there. So very, very serious water shortages on the Oxford this summer. I'm just hoping I can get over the Claydon flight. So you can buy stove fuel here, and this is the Clays family who have these beautiful old working boats here as well. And if you look in the workshop there, they've got a lot of restoration going on. No marina at Claydon. No. Okay. They don't want a marina at Claydon. See the old tractor and the old working boat. Here's a butty on this side, and it's lovely to see that people make the effort to restore these old boats and keep them going. You know, what happens when they stop doing this and this is all torn down, and it'll all change. It won't be the same anymore. Oh, there's a nice splitty in there as well. Lots of old tractors too. They like their vintage mechanised transport, these people. So once you're through Elkington's Lock, it's about a mile to the bottom of the Claydon flight, which is the bit we're on now, this pound. And there's luckily a bit more water up here. Well, sadly this boat coming down didn't check below the bridge to see if there was someone coming up, so they've turned the lock round, which is a bit of a pity because that's cost me 10 minutes. So we're into the Claydon flight. I've just done the first lock and left the gate open for the boat that's coming down this lock here. They're coming out, which is wonderful. So they can leave the gates open for me. I hope they will. Well, I've got the Claydon top lock. It's 2:45, and I've had a lot of help from other boaters. They've been absolutely brilliant, offering to help. I've helped out other boats too. And that's it. The 5 locks done in about half an hour, I guess. Maybe 40 minutes. So really cracking on here. It's great. I might just get to Fenny in time for diesel. Continuing our journey on the Oxford Canal, I'm above Claydon top lock and had a lot of help from some really nice people who took pity on me as a single-hander for some reason. I don't know why. I didn't ask for any help, but people were very kind and opened locks and gates and paddles for me and all sorts. Let me in, shut the gates behind me, etc. So I've got 1 hour and 10 minutes to get the 3 miles to Fenny Marina before they shut at 4 o'clock, and I hope I can do it. I just might make it without going too fast. The canal does seem a lot better off the water up here. It's a lot deeper. The bank's a lot closer to the level of the canal here. So they obviously are back pumping water a lot up both of the flights to fill up this summit pound, and it shows. It's really much better here than it was lower down the Claydon flight and below, where we were close to the bottom, or as they say, the bottom was too close to the top. I just love these little bridges into secret wharfs or inlets. As we get nearer to Fenny Compton, we go through this old abandoned railway bridge, and very soon we're going to go into a cutting that used to be a tunnel, the Fenny Compton Tunnel, but they kind of gave up on the idea and just took the top off and turned it into a cutting instead. And you'll see that in a second. Well, I'm pretty annoyed because the book says Fenny Marina are open 10 till 4 on a Sunday, and last year they were open 10 till 4 on a Sunday and closed on a Monday. And I know things do change, but I just rang to make sure they were going to be open till 4, and now they don't open Sundays, they open Mondays instead. So I'm not in a hurry anymore. I'm just going to get to where I get to and then go back and get my car and bring it back up to the Wharf Inn at Fenny, which is where I'm planning on leaving the boat for the night. Anyway, we're nearly in the Fenny Tunnel, which I'll show you in a moment. So this is the beginning, or what would have been the beginning back in the day, of the Fenny Compton Tunnel, and you can see the stone edging there and the bank going up there, and they just took the top off it because it didn't really need to be a tunnel, I guess. So here we are in the Fenny Tunnel. I hope we don't meet any boats coming the other way now because it's ever so narrow, as you can see, and I don't even know if two boats can pass through here. It'll be interesting to see if they can. Yeah, dead straight, and the bank gets steeper and steeper on each side. And actually, if you're coming along the towpath goes over the top to one side, because obviously there wasn't ever a towpath in the tunnel itself. So the towpath goes up a ramp over the top and comes back down again on the other side. And it looks like I'm very lucky in that there aren't any other boats in here at the moment. We shall see if we meet someone coming the other way though. Just coming out of the, oh no, we're still in the Fenny Compton Tunnel here. And that sign up there says 38.25 miles to Oxford, 10 miles to Banbury. So I've got to cycle back to Banbury to get the car anyway. Yeah, we're just coming under the A423 road bridge, and there's this beautiful little cast iron bridge here in the middle as well. We'll see what that says on it when we get closer. Looks like there's a working party up ahead doing some repairs. No, there's no casting on the bridge that you can read, but it's bridge 137, so we've done about 100 bridges now since I set off 5 days ago. Bridge 137A. It's just a little footbridge across the canal here. So the bank's collapsed here, and they've obviously done some piling work here to shore it up. You can actually see where it's torn away from the, the section of the bank's torn away and falling into the canal. So they put some piling in there to shore it up, and tie rods to try and hold it together. Unfortunately, a lot of the work that the Canal and Rivers Trust does is now reactive rather than proactive, so they're desperately coming out and trying to fix things that are falling apart and closing the canal, rather than keeping an eye on things and repairing them in a timely fashion. So unfortunately, this reactive work, if they have to hire contractors to do it, costs a lot more than proactive work, where they have a lot of people looking after the canal and maintaining it properly all of the time. It's a shame. So the very high bridge signifies that we're almost at the end of the Fenny Compton Tunnel, and you can see the banks either side aren't as high as they were, the embankments either side. We're coming out, once we get to that corner in front of us, we'll be out of the tunnel altogether. Right, this is Fenny Marina on the left, and up in the distance through the trees, I hope you can see it, it's quite a long way off, is the services mooring where you can fill up with diesel, which I'm now going to do tomorrow morning because they're shut today. Grr.